Hey everyone, my name is Melody Nouri, and I'm a Senior Product Marketing Manager at Netskope. I'm excited to guide you all through this next session today on securing AI's next move, which, if you haven't guessed already, is Agentic AI. So let's jump right into it. I want to walk us through the holistic journey to start us off, because I know not all of us are going to go full force into Agentic AI right away. We've already been on this journey and continue to grow as far as adopting AI in different ways in our organization. So I want to take a look at these 5 steps and reflect upon where we've come, where we're at today, and where we're headed. Looking at stages 1 and 2, this is really speaking to the explosion of generative AI. So when ChatGPT was introduced and we had a bunch of Gen AI applications coming to the market, users were just out there experimenting. They were trying to do their job in the best way possible and seeing if they could automate, try and do things better. And that led to a lot of risks when it came to shadow IT, or shadow AI, as we like to call it. Especially today, we see that most SaaS applications are essentially AI applications because they have some sort of embedded AI capability within them. So this just speaks to the expanding risk landscape and security teams being pressured to figure out how can we get visibility into this and how can we really manage the risks that come along with the first steps in the journey. I would say today we see 1, 2, and now 3 being where organizations are at today. So many teams are standardizing on standalone AI tools or ecosystems for their organization. So, for example, at Netskope, we standardized on Google Gemini, and that's the primary Gen AI application that we want to route all of our users to use. That's for a multitude of reasons. It's so we have a little bit more of a narrowed view at, okay, I at least can control this one application. We understand the posture of that application, and we can make sure that all the data going into that application, it's guaranteed that it will not be used to train whatever models. The issue is, though, we still see about 70% of users accessing generative AI applications using their personal credentials. So, this is actually an improvement from a year or two ago where that number was closer to 98, 100%. We've standardized more, now we're around 70, but the shadow AI issue is still very apparent. Moving into these later stages, stage 4 is what we're seeing organizations move towards today. So in 2024, 0% of enterprises were actually looking into deploying private AI in their organization. That has now jumped up to over 50%. So we're seeing this be an ongoing journey and evolving as we go. Again, as organizations try and adopt private AI tools, this introduces new risks when it comes to making sure those applications aren't vulnerable to any threats, can't be exploited, and similarly making sure no data is lost in that process. And moving on to stage 5, which is where the future is seeming to go, is around autonomous AI agents. Those agents are acting pretty much like users are, right? They need access, they're interacting with the data in your enterprise, they're connecting to different applications. So we also want to make sure that they have the proper controls and proper settings in place so we are enabling that innovation securely. So you can see this journey of adopting AI is really a much broader picture than just the agentic area. But for today, we're going to be focusing all around the agentic AI use case. That being said, I'll jump into level setting around what are AI agents, some of the benefits, and some of the risks. So, as I mentioned, AI agents are just like the users in your organization, and leveraging them can help you really unlock scale. So, we see almost 40% of organizations are using tools like GitHub Copilot. They'll say, help me optimize this code, and then that agent will actually iterate until it reaches that specific goal. So this agent is actually having access to your organization's data and executing some of those actions autonomously. So while it allows you to have some great scale, it does increase that attack surface. So these are the risks with the AI agents. And when we're looking at the future state of where this is headed, we have a fun Gartner quote here that's saying, all right, we know there's no agentic AI use really this year, last year, but in 2028, at least 15% of daily business decisions will be made autonomously through agentic AI. So this risk will just continue to get exacerbated as we continue into the future and start deploying a lot of these agents in actual enterprise settings. So to understand further what this agentic landscape really looks like, I want to zoom in on agentic interactions. This is a graphic here of what the lay of the land would be for a typical Gen AI application, not only agents. I break it down into there's three components you want to look at. How you're going to be able to secure your users accessing those applications, how you're going to be able to secure the AI engine itself, so the data that's being ingested into it, the interactions that are happening within the AI orchestration, and then finally the sources that are feeding into it. When we're looking at agentic AI, it's primarily focused on this middle pillar on the AI agent. However, it is linked very closely to the user component and to the sources component because we do have to figure out the user is the one who's putting in the prompt that is actually telling the agent what to do. And then the agent is accessing other outside services like data sources to be able to pull information that's needed to execute upon the task. So while everything is interconnected, we're really focusing on this machine to machine traffic or these agentic interactions in this middle layer. At Netskope, we break this down into three different parts. You have the LLM models that are actually interacting with the agents. That's one. The second one is you have agents interacting with other web sources through what we call Model Context Protocol, MCP. So that squiggly logo that you see on there, that is the logo for MCP, which is essentially a way for an agent or any AI application to connect to another application and ingest that data. So you have a MCP host or client, and you have an MCP server, which is providing you with the information. So on both those sides, you need to make sure those interactions are secure and there's no sensitive data moving between them. And then finally, you have the agent to agent communication. So you also want to have visibility into what's happening and what actions are actually being taken autonomously between those two agents. So those three pillars and those flows that you can see here is the new architecture of kind of the generative AI landscape and AI agents specifically. And when we're thinking about how we want to approach securing those interactions, it goes back to security foundations, and that's all around zero trust principles. We want to ensure least privilege access, and we want to have continuous and adaptive trust in real time for our user in our agentic interactions. So what does that really look like? You can see here, I have all these boxes that are essentially signals that we're getting from both our inline API and posture controls. So we have this idea of an environment, and depending on what is interacting, what users interacting with a different application, what action they're potentially taking, such as uploading data, downloading data, deleting data, the policy will take a different action depending on the riskiness and the policy that you set that is aligned with your business's risk appetite. So this top bar here, we're going to focus on a user interaction with a generative AI tool. What that looks like is a user sitting at home on a managed device. I'm in my home office and I'm accessing Google Gemini. I'm uploading sensitive company information, but guess what? I'm actually uploading it in my personal instance of Gemini. So that may be a flag for my policy engine saying, oh, this is sensitive information being uploaded to a personal instance. We're actually going to go ahead and block this upload. Or we can even coach the user and give a pop up message and say, hey, seems like you're taking a risky action. We're going to redirect you to our corporate version of Google Gemini and you can move forward with what you're trying to do. So this is the result of all the context you have across what we call our zero trust engine to have proper context into being able to apply really granular policies to enforce that risk management. Same thing goes for agents. So just like users, they're going to have a location and they're going to have a source and an end destination that they're getting to. So in this example, we have an MCP client, which is like an agent trying to reach a Snowflake database. Again, trying to upload company information, but this is risky because it's a non-enterprise instance and the location in North Korea is deemed as a risky location. So, because we have all this context and we're able to see all this traffic and ingest these signals, we're able to take the appropriate action, which in this case would be to block. So, while the architecture may be new, the same zero trust principles still apply. This is kind of the wrap up for the session. I want to focus on these 4 steps to effectively managing this risk because at the end of the day, this AI security challenge needs to be looked at a holistic level. You're going to first start off with assessing your AI landscape. When we see organizations on their AI journey, the first step is you can't scare what you can't see. So you need to get visibility. And that extends to both shadow AI and the machine to machine traffic that I was talking about. So any interactions with MCP, any interactions between agents, you need to have a mechanism to be able to see all the traffic that's flowing and then have a consolidated view of all that information that you can derive insights from. So, identify what tools are being used and the trends around that. And that leads you to be able to properly enforce app controls, which is number 2. So, you want to be able to allow approved apps, block unapproved and risky apps, or even enforce alerts. So, you're not going to be actually interrupting any business productivity. Make sure you're enforcing data loss prevention for any sensitive data that's being moved across your enterprise. Make sure you understand where that data lives, that it's labeled properly, and where it's flowing through your user and agent interactions. And finally, take the chance to coach your users because oftentimes, especially with AI, people are just trying to get their job done. They don't know that they're actually performing a malicious behavior, especially when we think about the Google Gemini example. I can have both my personal instance and my corporate instance on the same browser. You can easily switch back and forth between them. So I may have accidentally been on my personal instance and not have known, and then went to upload sensitive company information. So, having that coaching message is a really useful tool in enabling your organization to safely adopt AI. Number 3 is specifically for deploying local AI infrastructure. So, we know we have that whole public SaaS realm, but what about when you're building actual AI agents or AI applications locally? This is where it's really important to identify the risk piece with your application itself. So there's a lot of security frameworks that you can follow, like the OWASP Top 10, NIST AI Risk Management, MITRE, to be able to take a look at the framework for seeing what threats your application may be vulnerable to and making sure you secure that application from any exploits. And then finally, we're going on this ongoing journey for continuous monitoring and awareness. So it's not like you can just do this once and be ready to go, especially because this space is evolving so much. So number 4 goes back to 1, 2, and 3. You're continuously monitoring your AI usage, making sure you're identifying new shadow AI that may pop up in your organization. And if any new threats are trending, being aware of those industry standards and setting guidance within your organization about how users should be appropriately using those tools. It's not only a security challenge, right? We need to enable our users to be able to use these tools properly and get their job done. And that's really what it's about at the end of the day. So, wrapping us up, I did want to share a link to our latest Threat Labs report. This has some great nuggets of information all around trends with shadow AI and the agentic AI space. You can dig a little bit deeper into the most popular applications that people are using and some of the trends that Netskope is seeing across its customer base as far as their adoption across that AI journey. So, really appreciate your time today. Feel free to connect with me and hope you enjoy the rest of your sessions in the Agentic AI Summit. See you next time.